Mariam, I was speaking and Jeff, our producer, told me, Mr. Quach, in terms of matters health, are you aware that January is cervical cancer awareness month? I was like, damn, brother, no, I was not. And it's like, you know what? We need to highlight this, okay, and put it at the forefront. That said, then we're like, but it was the obvious question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know a survivor? Which means clearly, as the language says, somebody who has had cervical cancer and has come out the other end. And you know what? The sad thing is, most people don't know a survivor. But you know what? We said the month the sun cannot set on a January, and this said with our guest in studio today, hopefully going forward every January, and when we talk about January, we're talking about now after you've kicked off your shoes of Happy New Year. We get the guest who's in studio today to come in at the beginning of the month and basically say, okay, fine, as you begin a new year, let us put this now at the forefront and make sure that it is top of mind.
Yes.
For the rest of the year. That said, it is our extreme pleasure when we talk about matters health to invite into studio. She is to welcome to studio. She is a health advocacy specialist and the executive director of Kilele Health. I love the title, by the way.
Thank you.
Let's shout about it.
Thank you.
Brenda Kithaka, thank you so very much for coming through, Brenda.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
And I know it is not in the traditional hour sense. I'm talking about the Chinese sense. Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year. I wish I spoke Chinese, but I don't.
Just say ni hao and we're good to go.
No. I may mispronounce it, and then what do you know?
You know?
Yeah.
Brenda, karibu sana.
Asante.
Brenda, karibu sana. Brenda, tell us about Kilele Health.
Wow, where to start? First, to thank you and Mariam for having me today. We love that even at the end of the month, we still get to talk about it. And we love that we get to have such crucial conversations, as you said, make it top of mind for the rest of the year. And so I'm happy that we're having this conversation at the tail end of all that has happened in January. My name is Brenda Kithaka. I'm the founder and executive director of Kilele Health. And Kilele Health is a label of love, a child of the need to bridge the gap in communications for cervical cancer and cervical health, to be specific. And the reason being, when we came to being, that's about 5 years ago, I was angry. I had worked in advocacy for about 9 years, and I had been talking cervical cancer every single day. But the numbers were still rising. The level of miscommunication, misinformation, and disinformation was rising. And people, women that I love dearly, were also dying. And at that time, I was like, we have to rethink the conversation on cervical cancer. And we have to rethink from a survivorship perspective so that we get more people surviving that can come back and tell the story that indeed it's doable. And that's how Kilele Health was formed.
What are the numbers right now?
Goodness, let's say we have about 5,200 women diagnosed annually.
What?
And about, 5,200 women, 5,239, and about 3,200 dying annually.
Half of that?
Over half.
That's about 60%.
60% of the women dying of a disease that's 100% preventable.
Brenda, you asked how graphic or personal can we get?
Yes.
So we said, and Mariam, you said, in terms of matters health, we've got to get to grips with it.
Yes.
So thank you, because that's a very specific number. 5,300, 5,139.
Yeah.
Now, Brenda, 5 years ago, you said, okay, that's it. You threw your hat in the ring, but you had been this advocacy for 9 years. What happened 9 years ago?
Well, it's to be precise, 15 years now.
Okay.
My sister was told she had cervical cancer.
Wow.
I was working in corporate marketing. I was doing what brands do, sell brands, get people happy, and deliver on the brand promise. And we were planning a campaign to launch a vehicle. And I got a call from my brother-in-law, says, your sister has cancer and we don't know what to do. And at that time, I thought to myself, cancer. What do we know about cancer? At that time, I thought death. And so in a panic, I was like, no, bring her to Nairobi. She's in the village. We'll bring her to Nairobi. We'll get her the best care possible. And true to God, she came to Nairobi. We started with diagnostics. She was diagnosed to be pre-cancer of the cervix, not cancer of the cervix. That was the first flag for me. Pre-cancer.
Okay.
She went on to be treated. She recovered. She went back home. 6 months later, she was pregnant. So again, that was another aha moment for me. So pre-cancer is treatable, 100% recoverable. Woman has gotten a baby. And at that time, I kept asking myself, where are we missing the point? Why would it be that the first news that I got, I thought was death, and now we're talking about life and life-giving?
Okay. Benda, may I ask?
Yes, please.
How's your sister doing?
Oh, she's amazing.
Oh, good.
Oh, she is amazing.
Okay.
She
Fully
was
recovered.
27 at the time.
Right.
Okay. 15 years later, 42.
Right. Yes.
Amazing.
Right.
She's raising her children.
Good.
Our fears were unfounded. But, and this is where the big but is, it was a case of early diagnosis, early detection treatment. There are many women, even at that time, who are being discovered late stage, when the treatment is very expensive, when the cost of care is very expensive, and the chances of survival are minimized.
Brenda, I'm trying to, at a previous employ,
Yes.
many moons ago,
Yes.
I don't know if it was going back 15 years, but anyway, early in this millennium, and when we talk about advocacy and awareness campaigns, I remember there was, and you see, and Mariam, you see, Brenda says it's pre-cancer. There used to be to road shows, and because I remember going, and I was involved in that road show because I think I was the MC. All right. Now, the thing is this: let's start, and Google, of course, is our friend, but for the uninitiated, what is cervical cancer?
Wow. Definitions. Cervical cancer is a cancer of the cervix. The cervix is the opening of the womb where the baby passes through when it's time for childbirth. It's also the opening that closes when the woman is pregnant so that that pregnancy can be viable. So cervical cancer is that area affected by the cancer. And just a step back, cancer is uncontrollable development of cells, okay, which if a cell is damaged, it dies. If the cell is damaged and refuses to die and continues growing faster than the rest of the cells around it, starts eating into the other cells, that's when we have something called a mass, which is cancerous, which then, when we associate it with cervix, it's cervix cancer. If it's in the breast, it's breast cancer. If it's in the brain, brain cancer. So that's cervical cancer for you.
You'd make a very good teacher, by the way.
Thank you.
Now, that said, why is... Sorry, Mariam, I know you want to ask a question.
Yes.
Why is cervical cancer so... Wow, I don't want to use the word because it's all about positivity. Why is it so deadly?
Let's put it in perspective. Cervical cancer is not very deadly.
Okay.
The reason being, if women took charge of their health and the men in their lives supported them, we wouldn't even have cervical cancer in the first place. WHO, the World Health Organization, has set targets that we can actually eliminate cervical cancer from the face of the world. Okay. But now, let me answer your question, the question you intended. Why does it cause so many deaths?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. The reason why cervical cancer is causing so many deaths in Africa and in Kenya and in other parts of the world is because of late diagnosis and late treatment and also misdiagnosis and many other things. But I'll go to the genesis of cervical cancer. It's caused by HPV, human papilloma virus. It is such a common virus that anyone in our lives who has had intercourse has caught HPV at one point or another. There are over 100 different types.
Wow.
Okay? But 2 have been correlated and found to cause cervical cancer, 16 and 18.
Oh, they're
Now,
numbered
the
like,
thing is,
they're
yes,
numbered from
there are
one.
quite a number of them. And some of them cause herpes, others cause other cancers, but cervical cancer is caused by 16 and 18, and a few others that are still being researched. The thing about cervical cancer is when it's developing in the body, initially, it's a HPV infection. Persistent infection with HPV over a long period of time develops into cervical cancer.
Okay.
Now, before we get to invasive cervical cancer, we have what I called pre-cancer of the cervix. This is when the cells are still developing, and if they are caught at that time, they can be reversed either through cryotherapy or thermoablation. Treatment modalities that take place in a doctor's office, no need for surgery, no need for chemotherapy, no need for radiotherapy. It's a 15 minutes procedure.
The one for burning with the laser or something?
Yes. Not just laser, it's actually a thermoablation with an electric device that burns the cells of the cervix, and in 6 months it's clean. Okay. Now the thing is, because HPV infection through to cervical cancer is a long-term game. It takes between 15 to 20 years and above.
What?
Yes. For those cells to change into cancer, an invasive cancer for that matter. Then, if women took the window period of from when you start having intercourse, intimate relations with your significant other, and you start 3 years from then, take your first screening. Okay? Even if you wait 10 years interval, again you take another screening, we would be able to beat cervical cancer 100% hands down. The problem is that women wait so long before they go get screened. The other problem is that women we can be our own enemies in a way. I will go get screened. I will come back and tell my girlfriends, oh, it's so uncomfortable. It's so invasive. It's so all the myths and misconceptions that we hear. And I'm here today to tell women, be your sister's keeper. If you've gotten screened, go back and tell them, hey, I have been. Can you go? So that we stop women dying unnecessarily. The second thing, it's a long-term game again, okay? We know there is a vaccine, and I would want for us to talk about that today. Okay. Against HPV. Not against cervical cancer. Well, against HPV, which causes cervical cancer.
Yes.
And so HPV vaccination is cervical cancer prevention.
Yes.
But we have to give it so early before that girl has started having sex, so that when the time comes and HPV is introduced into her body through intercourse, she already has formed her own immunity and is ready to fight the virus.
Sorry, Benda.
Wait, you're almost responding to the question I wanted to ask initially.
Please ask me.
So what I wanted to ask was, at what age is a girl
vaccinatable?
No.
Yes.
At risk of getting cervical cancer?
Before she has sex.
Well, let's put it this way. And I want to take the conversation away not just from the girl to the woman, okay? For a girl, vaccination is early before the cells have been introduced. HPV has been introduced and can start forming the cell changes.
What age are we talking about here?
10 to 14. That's the earliest. That's the recommended age for vaccination.
After the menses or before? Or it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. It's if the girl is 10 years old through to 14 before she turns 15 and she's vaccinated, we've prevented for her in the future getting cervical cancer. Because even if she takes 5 years, 10 years to have sex, at which point she's old enough and mature enough and an adult to make those choices, already her body has developed immunity. I'll take you to other vaccinations, whooping cough and all the others, measles, etc. We give children vaccinations before the disease gets on so that this child develops their own immunity to fight the disease so that when the real culprit comes in, they're protected.
Okay, and HPV can only be contracted during sex. That's just it.
So here's an interesting fact for you. HPV also causes penile cancer. It also causes anal cancer. It also causes throat cancer, vaginal and vulval cancer. I've mentioned quite a number.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
And when we say it can only be introduced through sexual intercourse, that's not so. Because any intimate body-to-body contact,
Yes.
meaning MSM, men having sex with
Yes.
men.
Oh, man.
Surely.
Okay.
Okay, if a woman is
Anal cancer.
yes, anal cancer.
Okay,
Just paint
Penile cancer.
Paint the
Paint the picture. Throat cancer.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mariam?
No. The reason why I asked that is because it was still related to the girl child. At what point is she at risk?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So when you say when is the girl at risk of getting cervical cancer, I would say because as we've said, it takes time to develop in the body.
Yes.
From the moment she has sex with someone who has HPV already in their system, and because we don't know whether it is 16 or 18, and we don't know what other strain of HPV they have, and they are consistently introduced into HPV, therefore there is multiple reinfection with HPV, that girl over a period of time may or may not develop cervical cancer.
Okay.
Benda?
Yes.
You know, I honestly hate to interrupt, but now I want to talk as one of the boys, one of the men. Let's assume I have HPV. First of all, how would I know? I'm talking as a dude.
So there is no screening method for dudes.
Wow.
Sadly.
Yes.
And also, we don't want to go into the route of stigma because as long as anyone has done these things, they've caught HPV at one point or another.
Yeah, I like the fact that you said because I hear that a lot.
Yes.
Now, when Madame is going to see Dr. B,
Yes.
for that is her gyna.
Yes.
Okay. Like, okay, I'm off to see Dr. B.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And unless and honestly, I offer. I think I've gone once or twice
To take her.
Yes, I think I'm a good guy.
You're a good guy.
You know, but usually she's like, why?
Are you coming to the guy?
Umekosa kitu cha kufanya.
Ay.
Funny, not funny. Yeah. Now, because this is a rude awakening.
Yes.
And I consider myself a little bit more informed than the other guy because, like I said, I've been involved in civic education campaigns. How can we help as men? Because you see, now, by the mere fact that, for I know her husband, I can't see him taking you to the guy now.
Never.
How can we help, Benda?
Let's start with first, congratulations. That you would take her is a good step. Okay? How men can help, there are a number of ways. The first one is taking charge of taking the women for medical checks. And this, I'm not talking about just going to the gynae with her. It could be facilitating for her to be screened. For example, many women will fear going for the gynae visit because pap smears, and there is HPV testing, which is a bit more expensive. But if a dude is saying, hey, I know I want to support you, I can pay for this test for you, that's already support. That's one. The second one is, let's be real. There are rumors out there about if we vaccinate our girls early, what happens to their sexuality, what happens to their fertility. And men can be one of the propagators of that myth and misconception. Let's get men involved in this conversation to realize that if a girl gets HPV and develops cervical cancer in the future, and it's invasive because it's not been screened early or treated early, chances are she'll lose her cervix, she'll lose her reproductive organs. If she does so, she's lost her ability to have children. So if we are preserving fertility, one of the ways to go about it is actually to vaccinate our girls now, so that in the future, they don't have to worry about it. But there is another thing that we can do, and this is call on men to be faithful. And I'm saying this. I'm saying this because men, as the ones who are passing on HPV from a man to a woman, and having multiple sex partners, you're picking different HPV strains from different places. You're passing it on to your significant other. Okay? Reinfection, multiple reinfection is where she will get that. And it may be that your significant other is able to fight it. Because some women clear naturally. But the other women may not be able to clear naturally. And then, sadly, they will go and also pass it on to someone else. So it's a web. Okay? Men could be faithful. And that would deal with one of the issues, which is multiple sexual partners. There are other ways. For example, majority of men are in leadership positions in this country. They run corporates that have budgets for wellness. And we are constantly, for 14 years I've been in this field, 15 now, I've been in this field, and we constantly go to corporates, work with us to get women screened so that we can prevent this disease. The man on the job will be like, oh, but that doesn't concern us. Or it's very hard to get that check signed because it's a woman's issue. I can tell you, Coach, if men were the ones suffering from cervical cancer, we would have found solutions a long time ago. Wow. And so for me, as a health advocate, and because you asked me what can men do, let's get away from it's not my business. Let's start thinking of it as all of us are affected.
Like that.
And as men, in every situation, getting girls vaccinated, being vocal about it, talking about it. Today I'm here to create awareness so that everybody knows. And when they know, they ought to pass on the message to others. Financial decisions about supporting screening, supporting HPV vaccination, policy decisions. When we speak, Spice FM, you're talking to everybody in this country. Let's get real. Let's look at it as it's our business. It's not a woman's business. Yeah.
Mariam, obviously, we are here for Benda to talk about it.
Yes.
But, now in light of, listen to what she just said, and obviously you and I both got our partners. And she's like, positions of leadership. Would you also sit down with your sisters? Do you guys talk about this stuff?
Yes, I've spoken to them about it because I had a scare. There's a time I went for one of those tests, and what you were saying earlier, I don't know what it was, so they had to ban. So yeah, we've had such conversations because I was really terrified. I thought I had cervical cancer. So we do have those conversations.
Benda, it's with Kilele Health.
Yes.
Right? It's been 5 years. It's a 5-year journey. But your sis was 15 years ago, right?
Yes.
And you've been an advocate for the past 9, right? It's a decade. Right?
Actually 15.
15 years.
Yes.
Are you more optimistic? Obviously we cannot make enough noise in terms of awareness. What do you
Coach?
I'm very afraid about what you're about to say.
No. Don't be afraid. This is what I have to say, Coach. I know when I came in and you asked me to introduce myself and we were having a chit chat and you were saying we need to make this a forefront, top of mind conversation in January. I've got news for you. You've got 365 days. In a year. Cervical cancer will not wait until next year, January, for us to have this conversation again. It will not wait 334 days for us to get to 31 days again in January. Why don't we talk about it every month?
Yeah, by the way. Amen.
Or every 2 weeks? And I'll tell you, the other thing that you said is it's very hard to get survivors. Not so. If we were to agree with you that you need a survivor every month in this studio, talking about cervical cancer, we would get you. Because guess what? For the last 5 years, we've been equipping survivors and caregivers to speak authoritatively. Quach, if you go to TV, if you go to Google, let's make Google our friend. If you go to Google and you go to TV and radio and etc., for the first 9 years of my advocacy journey, it used to be me in the studio talking about, we didn't even have January Cervical Cancer Awareness Month being commemorated then.
Right.
Now, today, the only reason I'm here is because there was a team in Nyandarua yesterday, and so my team could not come.
Right.
Otherwise, it would have been somebody I would have sent here. Because we've gotten to the level where we've broken the silence and we started talking about it. So we can talk about this every single day. But before you get there, for me, it's not just so much about talking. Now it's about anchoring it in action. Because we can talk until the cows come home. But if women are not going to get screened, if girls are not being vaccinated, if our policymakers are not seeing what they're doing, and here I would want to talk about SHA as well, okay? If they're not seeing what they're doing, it becomes an exercise in futility, all the talking. What we ought to be doing is holding each other accountable. To say, today, Benda, I'm saying women go get screened. The question is, what facilities are screening women?
That's what I wanted to ask. Yeah.
In policy, it says every government facility is doing screenings for women. So women ought to be going there in droves. The question is, are the consumables available for them to be able to be screened? The question is the government providing an enabling environment? And I know they are, because we work in policy with government. So women need to now show up. Men need to go back home today and ask your woman, has she gone? Ask your wife, spouse, significant other, has your daughter who is 10 to 14 years old been vaccinated? So that we stop the talk and start walking the talk.
I do have 3 questions actually. So
Go ahead.
So the first question is, how often should you be screened? Second question is, if you've been vaccinated, should you still be screened? Okay. And then the third question, I've forgotten it.
It's okay. Let's answer those two. You
those
remember.
two first.
How often should we be screened as a woman? At least by the age. So I'll go guidelines and then I'll go real life. Okay. Guidelines. WHO says by the age of 35, a woman should have received the first screening, and again at the age of 45. So that's twice in a lifetime for us to get to elimination of cervical cancer. At the age of 35, by the age of 35, and again the age of 45. So 10 years difference. So twice in a lifetime, at least to be screened.
Not every year?
I'm coming to that. At least to be screened. Now, and for women who have HIV, who are living with HIV and AIDS, they should be screened more regularly and should even be screened at an earlier age, so 25, and then 35, and then 45. But, and this is where now I come to what is real and what is truth, okay? What is real is, if it takes 10 years to 20 years to 25 years to develop in the body, and a girl has started having intercourse at the age of 18 or 20, okay? At the age of 20, and we wait for 10 years, that's 30. Okay?
Yeah.
For that girl to be able to benefit from, I would say a woman needs to be self-aware. Self-aware to know, if I've started early, then go get screened early, and then put an interval of 10 years in between the two screenings. Touch wood, God willing, all things will be all you good, go home, you're fine. You go home knowing you're okay. If, on the other hand, we find something at that time, it's easier to treat. They will they will freeze that area, and in 6 months, it will be as good as new. And the woman can come back for a rescreening 6 months after to just check that everything was cleared. And after that, she can go back to her routine. Now, why we used to have annual for 3 years, and then after that move to every 5 years after that intervals, is because there are 3 different types of screenings.
Okay.
The first one is HPV testing, and it's the one I've talked about, the 10-year interval. Because if we are testing for HPV and we find nothing, or we find negative for 16 and 18, it means even if you go for 10 years and you get infected with HPV 16 or 18, chances are for it to develop into cervical cancer will take longer. If it's a pap smear, and the pap smear is checking for cell changes, we say do the first one and do another one in a year, and do another one in a year. So that if we missed it the first year, the second year, the third year, then after that you can skip 5 years to 10 years, because again, no cell changes in your body. And because pap smear is checking for cells that are already changing.
Okay, yeah.
If it is visual inspection using acetic acid, and that's the most commonly available screening test in Kenya and many African countries, where we're using vinegar to check the woman's cervix to see if there are any significant cell changes, then the interval should be every year and for 3 years, and then after that we skip again.
Sorry, Brenda, so this is available in the level 2 hospital there in the village?
Yes,
Should be available.
Yes, it should be available. Sorry.
Yes, it's okay.
It should be available.
Yes.
And what I say is this. Go check. If it is not available, shout about it. It's your right.
I like that, yes.
It's your right. Demand for the government to give that service. That's why we're here in advocacy. Can I talk about SHA now?
Please.
No, the second question was if you've already been vaccinated.
If you've been vaccinated, can you be screened? Yes,
Should
and
you be
absolutely.
screened?
Yes, and absolutely. Because remember how vaccinations work. It's to build the immunity to prevent the disease. Okay. Now, we've seen children who have been vaccinated for measles. Some of them still develop measles.
Okay.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If you've been vaccinated and you don't screen and it developed in you, would you want to come back and say the vaccine didn't work? Or would you prefer that you actually got screened and you found something? Okay. So it's a cryptic question for me. So yes, if you've been vaccinated, you still need to
go for the screening.
However, if we do vaccination, as WHO has recommended, it's supposed to be 90% of all eligible girls are vaccinated and 70% of all eligible women, ages 35 to 45, have been screened at least twice in their lifetime. And all women, 90% of women found with anything are treated. Okay?
Yes.
Either for pre-cancers or invasive cancers. If we were to do the 90-70-90, and in a span of 10 years, okay, we would have herd immunity. Herd immunity is where even if a guy comes with HPV and most of the women around him are vaccinated, they're not passing it on to any other person, and their body is helping fight it. That's where elimination happens, because then we are preventing passing on of HPV and the body is fighting it because it has immunity.
Okay, good. Is there any correlation between the use of morning after pill and cervical cancer?
Can I say this?
Yes, Brenda.
And I can speak loudly?
Yes.
It's one of the myths and misconceptions, but I would say the morning after pill means people are having unprotected sex more.
Yeah.
And therefore, the risk of contracting HPV and therefore the risk of getting more is higher.
Okay, good.
The same, and I'm glad you've asked that question, other things that predispose women to cervical cancer, or rather raise the risk of cervical cancer developing. We talked about multiple sex partners, and here I want to say it's not the woman having multiple sex partners, it's also even the dude having multiple sex partners and bringing that to her. Number of children, the higher the number of children,
the higher
risk. And because vaginal births also do have an effect on the cervix, but also more sex is happening in that house.
Yeah, true.
The other one is HIV and AIDS.
Yeah.
It predisposes. Women living with HIV are at 6 times higher of getting cervical cancer than women who are not immunocompromised. Okay? So that's another risk factor. Okay. Not screening, not vaccinating, all these things. Surprisingly, in some studies, women who smoke are also at a higher risk. The reason being some tobacco residue has been found in cervical cancer cells. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I can tell you it's another risk factor. Now, coming to being self-aware, Yeah. And this for me is, and please remember, we've not talked about SHA.
Well, that one I've bookmarked it. Don't
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to cervical cancer and the risk and I want to say this. As the cells are changing, as they're developing in the body, there are no signs or symptoms. By the time we get signs and symptoms, it's so invasive.
Mm-hmm.
It's rather late in the hour for pre-cancer. It is already invasive cancer. What are the signs and symptoms?
Mm-hmm.
If a woman has a foul-smelling discharge, and here we're talking about, like right now, as women, when you're going through your daily business, your body is also cleaning itself.
Yes.
So you have a discharge. But if you have a discharge that you can feel it coming out, and it is smelly, that could be a sign. I'm not saying it is cervical cancer. I'm saying go get checked so that we know what could be happening in your body. Secondly, bleeding abnormally. An abnormal bleeding in the vaginal cervical area is in between periods, for example. If a woman is menopausal and she starts bleeding again, if after intercourse she starts bleeding, again, those could be signs that something is developed up in the cervix and needs to be checked. Okay? In advanced cases, also, there is back pain. Okay? There is lower abdominal pain. And generally, if a woman is, loss of blood could also lead to anemia. It could also lead to, so let women be self-aware. For example, if you're a woman past the age of 50, childbearing age, and you start bleeding again, it's not normal, go get checked. If you're having in-between bleeding, many women like to call it spotting. Oh, I'm spotting. It's hormonal. It's and give excuses. Go get checked. For the men, encourage our women to talk about their private parts, and I'm doing in quotes private because
they're not private.
There is nothing private about sex and sexuality.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's normalize talking about these things. Let's normalize giving women the information and even calling our women out that they may take charge. And let's normalize having conversations about HPV vaccination, not steeped in fear, stigma, and misconceptions. But steeped in knowledge and awareness that this is a life-threatening disease that we are preventing for our girls. By the way, I have 2 daughters and one of them is vaccinated. The other one is not vaccinated because by the time we introduced the vaccine in the country, she had already reached the age of now screening.
Right.
And
just again to repeat, that's between 10 and 14.
Yes, 10 and 14 years old. Yes.
Right. Sorry, just finish that, Brenda, that thought you had.
If I had a magic wand, if I could do magic, I would say January is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month. Get every woman screened who is eligible. Get every girl who is eligible vaccinated. Guess what will happen? If we get all women the age of 35 and all women the age of 45 screened, next year, a new crop of women and girls will get to that age. Again, we will get them.
You said 70, 90, 90.
90, 70, 90. 90, 70, 90. If we got all girls ages 10 to 14 vaccinated right now, next year we would only be dealing with the age 10 cohort. And it sounds easy. I wish we could make it that easy. Yeah.
You know, the problem with certain freedoms is that, you can't force one to do certain things.
No.
Right?
But we can hammer it to them until they notice.
Indeed.
Yes.
And, Ben, at the beginning of the hour, have you looked at the third question?
I already asked.
Okay. At the beginning of the hour, obviously saying to get men involved. And, it's not only that emotional and physical support, but, let's think financials as well. So when we talk financials, I like the way you ask questions. Mine is a 2-part question.
Yes.
Now, obviously, it's a broad spectrum because if I go to place A and place B, the cost implication is different. But somebody might also say, I can't do this because money is a problem. And that's also where part B, where SHA comes into the whole story. But tell me, Benda, there's somebody, and let's assume I've got socioeconomically, okay, this radio is playing in somebody's house before Madame comes back, and it is a domestic help who's listening to you.
Interesting question.
Yeah, I think this way talk about policy and all of those.
This is a two-pronged answer.
Yes.
Okay, the first one is, I've said it and I'll repeat it.
Sharp.
Go to any government hospital, demand for screening. If it's not available, let's raise hell on social media. That's one. The second one, SHA. Okay? We were sold a story and we believed it. You're laughing. We were sold a story and we believed it. The story is, there are 3 approaches to SHA and all of them are working. The first one is the preventative mechanism where government had provisioned, and I say had, provisioned for screening as part of routine screening, routine immunization, routine care, so that all diseases that are screenable can be screened early and the treatment costs will be minimized. Okay?
Yes.
That's one. We were sold the second story. For those that are found, the hospital insurance fund, SHIF,
Yes.
will work.
Yes.
And they will be treated at no cost. And then we were sold another story. If the SHIF is exhausted and we get to chronic care, then treatment will be made through the chronic care package.
But
okay.
yes.
I'm a health advocate.
Yeah.
I can tell you, SHA is not working as it was intended.
Wow.
And from a policy perspective, it's time the Ministry of Health and the government of Kenya lived up to its promise for women. I don't speak about all the other disease areas. I want to talk about cervical cancer. The cost of inaction is costing us livelihoods, it's costing us lives, and it's costing us unnecessary pain as women. The prevention pillar for SHA, if it was instituted today and women were given the right to go and get screened, I would be among the first people that would be saying, go get registered. Mama Fua, with your 500 shillings, you're eligible. Go pay that 500 shillings once a month so that you're in SHA, so that that one screening that you need in a year for 10 years, you get it.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
I would be among the first people right now.
Right.
But I'll share an experience I had.
Yeah.
And this is what gets me angry. One, this is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month, and it should be for screening as well. HPV testing is available in this country. If a woman is tested today and she's negative for HPV, she can come back in 10 years, we won't have lost anything, because that test is precision and it is well proven to be efficacious to work. And so if she's been paid for the 3,000 shillings for that HPV test, calculate 10 years, the cost is negligible. Okay. And we know if we do testing and 80% of the women are okay, we're left with 20% to deal with precancers and other cancers and invasive cancers. We can concentrate for the rest of the year with those ones if SHIF was working, if chronic care was working. But right now, Kwach, I can tell you, even general tests in the hospitals are not covered. You have to go out of pocket. And that is where now Mama Fua becomes a problem, because we're telling her go get screened. She'll find the facility may not have these things. SHA is not refunding hospitals that are doing these tests, and therefore Mama Fua is on her own. There ought to be an outcry in this country. We ought to be rightfully angry about SHA and SHIF.
Benda?
I've said what I've said.
No. I'm going to ask you to pause. 0719012600. It should be something that is top of mind 365 days of the year. Today we're talking advocacy. I want you to ask those questions. 0719012600. Get on Spice FM KE. Benda Kidaka's in studio. And I feel kind of shy to say this particular hour. It's Wednesday, it's after 6, which makes it ladies' night. But speaking of ladies' night, on the last Wednesday of the month of January, and I was like, man, and after this 5 o'clock hour, when we talk about this Wellness Wednesday, it's been an eye-opener.
Yes.
Okay. And I am so privileged to have in studio, because what we're doing today is we're breaking the grip of cervical cancer. And it's all about 90, 70, 90. And with our guest in studio, if we can achieve those numbers according to the WHO, the World Health Organization, then we shall achieve herd mentality. It is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month, the month of January. But our guest in studio has dared me, Mr. Kwach. Fine, but awareness should be 365 days a year. And I've told our guests that, you know what? Benda, Kidaka, my dearest. See, February is the month of love. And because, you know what, you have the passion and the love that you have as the CEO of Kilele Health, February, please bring a survivor into the studio. You pick the Thursday. No, Wednesday. Yeah, it's not Wednesday. Alafu, do you know what? Let us basically put that up, the civic education campaigns out there. I'm talking to Benda Kithaga. She's a health advocacy specialist, and she's the executive director of Kilele Health. Oh man, na Benda amepiga kelele. But she's done it in such a way that you know what, that it is, there's listening and there's hearing.
Yes.
I've listened. I have listened.
And you've heard.
And I've heard.
And you'll action.
And we will action.
There is something you can do for me, though.
Yes, my dear.
We're constantly training people.
Sharp.
So that we can make ourselves irrelevant.
Right.
I would want to go to
I like the way
vacation
you put that. Yes.
in the Bahamas. Right. And forget this, but not leave a gap in this work.
Indeed.
And so we're constantly looking for champions.
Right.
Quach, with your millions of listeners and viewers, you'd make an amazing champion. So does Mariam here, and the spaces that you have.
Yes.
But it's not just about the two of you.
Right.
It's also about getting as many people as possible to understand, so that they can take the message forward to the places that we may not be able to reach.
Right.
For example, I hear people saying, the Catholic Church is against HPV vaccination.
Right.
It's a lie.
Right.
The Catholic Church has never been against vaccinations, especially because they're life-saving. Why would you be saving people for heaven if you're not saving them for life today here on earth? Anyway, so I digress.
No. First of all, from your lips to my ears.
Yes.
Because also, do you know what? At the beginning of the last hour, and even us as men, we've got to do more. And you're looking for champions.
Yes.
And like I said, from your lips to my ears, and people are listening. I've given you my number.
Yes.
Use that number, and as we set the stage at the beginning of the year, right? Whatever you have asked of me to do, that will be done.
Fantastic. Amen to that.
No, that's what I've given you.
Mariam.
Yes.
And you too.
Oh, yes.
She's good. She's put us on the spot on air.
Well, your listeners love you, and they know that you're people of your word.
Yes.
So we are going to look for a date in February where we can do this. And then going forward, we also look for opportunities to train. And so that we get as many people speaking the truth, so that even the lies, as they're trying to navigate the world, they're met bang on with truths. And the truth is, women are dying unnecessarily. We need to stop that.
Look, but we don't just talk for the sake of talking, right? And everything, I believe everything happens for a reason. And personally, I'm looking for a lot of legacy projects.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Awesome. We shall utilize that.
Yes. So, Mariam, that aside, we From in terms of what policymakers, Benda has spoken about what they have done and what, or done and not done. You know, we are talking about as parents, we know what we need to do in terms of like our young girls from the age of 10 to 14.
Yes.
Then obviously young women are listening. So, because ironically that age of 35 is when you stop being a youth.
Yes.
And then we know what you've got to do at the age of 45. Do you think that will change that perception from what Benda said, sitting now in those caucus groups? You know, like there you are on the Friday night, you're sitting with the girls and, those demystifying. Has she demystified the myths?
Yeah, she has.
All right.
She has.
Right.
That was very helpful. I mean, it makes
Thank
the
you.
conversation easier when you're sitting with the girls.
Thank you.
And you've given me a very good approach, because very many people are scared of going for the test because they don't want to see the results, But the vaccination issue is very big. It needs to, that's something that they need, because I know many people don't know about the vaccination.
No.
Actually, very many women don't know about that.
No.
So that for me is good, and it's something that you can share very easily, that they know that it's a preventive. There's something
Yes.
preventive about it. Huh?
Yes.
So yeah,
And
that really
the other
helps.
thing, even on screening, and this is my invitation to you, in those spaces that you have many audiences, that you may not be able to speak to them about it,
Yes.
we have trained advocates, and we've put them on their toes to go and speak about it. So if you're shy to talk about vulvas and vaginas and all the words that start with V's, and you're afraid to talk about it, we can make ourselves available. We're not shy to talk about it. And secondly, we're not shy to demonstrate. Okay? True story, and this is not related to cervical cancer, but this is related to cervical cancer in the sense that I have survivors who have been trained, breast cancer survivors and different types of cancer survivors, trained on cervical cancer elimination. Last year in September, we sent a team to Marsabit County, where we have a project that we're running on vaccination. And we sent a team there. 2 of them were survivors, 2 of them were programmatic people from my organization, and they were working with the county government. And at that point, when they went to talk to other community health promoters, and they said, I am a survivor. And one of the women said, no, we've never seen a survivor in this county. How can you possibly say you've survived cancer?
What?
She had to remove her breast prosthetic to show that she's a one-breasted woman. The other one is a prosthetic that they've knitted and they've put on, so that she can demonstrate that indeed cancer is survivable. And that made the conversation so much easier. About now, let's have about a conversation about cervical, which not only is survivable, but is 100% preventable with a vaccine.
Wow.
Are you getting that?
Yes.
So in those spaces, Mariam, where you're not able to have the conversation yourself, we've got the people with lived experiences that have dedicated their lives, as you say, legacy projects. They've dedicated their lives to giving awareness and education so that women stop dying unnecessarily. Men get bold enough to talk about these things, and our girls get protected. We are happy to serve.
If I may, from the women who've been diagnosed with cervical cancer,
Yes.
are most of them in the rural areas or urban areas?
We haven't done that study.
Okay.
And it's an interesting question you ask. But I would say any woman anywhere is at risk. And so it's not a gender, it's not a geographical correlation. Yes, women living in more HIV endemic regions would have more incidences of cervical cancer. And that's where also donors spend a lot of money and a lot of time trying to get these women. But women in Turkana, Marsabit, and other places, they're at risk too. Women in Nairobi, living in urban low-income households, living in high-income households, women everywhere. As long as you're a woman, or as long as you have a cervix, even for the ones who don't want to identify as women, if you have a cervix, you're at risk.
Penda, it's 2 days to the end of the moon. But I look, you said it. This is a 365-day thing. So,
Yep.
but in terms of the month of January, is there? So, there's somebody who's listening to you right now,
Yes.
and let's break it down. We've spoken about Nani. Sure, we're not going to talk about it again.
No, we won't.
But it's that one of listen, money is a problem, man.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there something that we spoke about policymakers? Is there something that they're doing so that it makes it easier for me to go for a test? Yani, are there camps, clinics?
Are we talking about free clinics?
Thank you.
Free screenings, yes.
But I just didn't
Like
want to
right
use the
now?
word free. I wanted it to come out of Benda's mouth. Because, we don't want her to commit
So
to
right
something.
now-
Yeah.
In Embu County, on Tuesday, my team, together with other partners, launched a campaign
Right.
to screen women at no cost.
Right.
And I have to give a shout out to the Embu County government because they've been very supportive. We've run a program for 2 years now in Berry North, which is one of the marginalized regions. And right now in Ishera Level 5 Hospital and a few other screening points across Embu County, it's happening at no cost. For other counties, there are quite a number. Nyandarua, for example, is also screening. Nakuru is also screening through efforts of the government.
You see now, and you said it, and I thought at that particular point, Benda was being sexist. But one thing that Embu County and Nakuru County have in common,
A lady governor.
they're lady governors.
Yes. And I can tell you, the G7 are a powerful team. But I don't want to dismiss the men governors.
Sharp.
The reason being, in our work, remember I've been in this field for a while and I'm losing my voice. Maybe it's time to shut up.
No, we're about
I'm
to release you.
saying-
Yeah.
I'm saying in our work, we've seen quite a number of governors in the COG, Council of Governors, come forward and say, yes, we will do something. But as I've said, we need to stop talking and start doing.
I like that.
What I love about the governors that I've mentioned is that they've taken charge and they are doing something. Okay?
Yeah.
What stops the other governors from doing something?
know,
What stops the women MPs from
Yes.
doing something?
Yes.
What stops the MCAs in all the counties? There are enough women in leadership. So it's not a woman in leadership issue.
Give us.
It's an enabling environment across board for all of us to action. So my call to action to the governors, 2027 is coming. And everybody keeps saying we're getting ready for 2027. I'll tell you, and I pray God keeps me long enough in this world to change the dialogue from women being given a loaf of bread to vote, to women being given their health back to give their vote. Women are 50% of the population in this country. It's time we started voting on issues. So, as I said, I'm a health advocate. And my role is to ensure that this civic education is not just about talk, it's about action. It's about issues that are correlated with what we promise our people. You promise, you deliver. If you don't, we'll vote you out. Oh, this is not a political rally.
Every common topic, actually, the cervical cancer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the impact that we as men, what we need to do.
Yeah.
And I'll pick up that baton and we're going to do it. Like I said, legacy project, we're going to champion that. But I learned something else today.
What did you learn?
Thank you. See, you must ask those questions. You're not good at telling stories or getting involved in stories. That's why Kenyans are like, you've been to the shark.
Nini umelan?
I'm the guy telling the story. Sasa tulikuwa watu.
Quite, I'm a very good listener. I just
Okay,
like to let people flow.
Okay.
So, what did you...
Back in the day, because obviously once you engage in this sport, you obviously now you work in the public eye, in the public domain.
Yes.
Okay. But back in the day, stalkers, they weren't very easy because you see, in fact, we were told when we started that we had the look for radio. Wanaelewa?
Yes.
Yes. Because if you look like the back of an Akamba bus, lakini uko na sauti,
Ingia radio.
But
Yeah.
if you look like Wairimu, first of all, sasa ni TV. We see, but these days it's audiovisual, right?
Yes.
Because it is TV.
Yes.
I've realized, Mariam Wairimu, that it's easier to stalk people these days. It's scary though, with social media.
Yes.
Yeah?
It scares me.
Because I follow you and I see some of the comments that people make. Jesus. How about tomorrow you come to work in a gunia? Let's see what happens next.
I could do that. We could try that.
Please, no.
No, the gunia means a hoodie and all that. It helps.
Oh, okay. Okay. No. Then guys will be like, wacha kukalia dem bwana.
Niliona kuna sexist wako pale ndani.
Hey. Yeah, so that's what I learned. In 2025, man, somebody can stalk you in so many different kind of ways.
Have you been stalked?
Why? I was just telling you, I learned something. Why do you want to create a mountain out of a molehill? But then you see me, what I do then, I don't